Tonight, on a very special episode of Winter Wolf's Den, we discuss whether or not Star Wars is truly on life support with the Ahsoka series. Don't miss it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Winter Wolf here. I'm going to give you my solo thoughts and review on Ahsoka Episode 6, Far, Far Away. King Z already put his video out for the channel. We appreciate his hard work and diligence. We know he's not dealing with ideal circumstances, so please, round of applause for King Z. Thanks a lot, buddy. We appreciate you doing what you can from the road. People, if you like what you hear, when we get to our discussions about our various topics, please consider subscribing to the channel. Helps out. Comments are always super appreciated. We love the feedback that we got on the previous episodes reviews. We like to keep that rolling, get some momentum building forward. So without any further ado, let me jump right into my my takedown.
Nice takedown. Thanks.
Because I got bad news. You might have seen the intro a couple seconds ago. Guys, Ahsoka Episode 6, big letdown for Winter Wolf on all fronts just about.
We're all shocked.
It was supposed to be a major payoff for two major characters being introduced into the world of live action, and I thought they fumbled the ball worse than the Patriots typically do on Sunday. It was not a good look for me. I know King Z had a whole different viewpoint, and I invite you to go check that out again. I thought he had some brilliant connections that he made between various elements of symbology and where things appear in other elements of our human culture, not just pop culture. It's a very interesting take that he had. But I'm gonna hit it at more of on a ground level, just within the story itself. What's going on with this show and why it might even be more disappointing to me than something like Kenobi. Because there was just so much more opportunity to do something novel with this particular show. They weren't burdened with canon in a lot of the same ways that something like Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett was. But real quick, the overview of the episode. Runtime, longer than some of the other ones. It was like 49 minutes. We can trim a few minutes off for credits like we always do on either end. It gets it down to like somewhere in the respectable 42, 43 minute range. But then there's a massive time waste that goes on. It's like something like 10 total minutes in the middle of the episode where Sabine's on a side quest to find Ezra. And for like 7 minutes or so, she really just does nothing but walk across the desert. Setting up a couple of smaller scenes within scenes. But it was a lot of dead downtime. And I've maintained, and you folks that have been with us for a while, these Disney Plus shows that only give us 8 episodes with runtime significantly under an hour, you guys don't have time to screw around like that and just having people off on walking quests and doing nothing and just, distant tracking shots, environment shots, and looking out into the middle of nowhere. It just doesn't work. And then on top of that, we'll jump right into the synopsis right here for the episode. We get 3 minutes right off the front with Ahsoka getting not a bedtime story from Huyang, and then she fucks off for the rest of the episode. Get that? Your title character took the episode off. She's there for 3 minutes and then she's gone. And it's a little weird because I didn't miss her in the episode, not because Rosario Dawson's a poor actress, but because they don't give her anything interesting or compelling to do. So I didn't miss it. But again, I think it's a bad sign for a show where anybody putting it together can think that the title character, that the lead, that the audience's like resonant emotional anchor to the world could just be like, nah, it's cool. I'm taking a union mandated break, I guess.
Taking some time off.
So it just didn't work. But the synopsis of the episodes, it's really straightforward. It's what we always call, shit happens then kind of writing, and then shit happens then.
And then.
And that's what this episode is. It's Ahsoka getting the story from Huyang. We get the arrival of Baylan and the Baroness. We get Elsbeth there with Shin and Sabine finally going through the warp ring and arriving on a planet called Peridia, where they meet the Night Sisters and make preparations for Thrawn's arrival. That happens. I'll give you my thoughts on that down below. They cut Sabine loose, as apparently they're wont to do in honor arrangements. Good for you bad guys, for the most part. She heads down planet side. Of course, the screw job happens, and Thrawn sends Baylan and Shin after them. Each team makes little alliances on the planet. As Ezra meets up with Sabine, she found him somehow. I guess he was only living a couple of miles from where the Star Destroyer knew to meet the Night Sisters. That's interesting. I guess they couldn't have scanned for those life signs or sent out probe droids or low-flying TIE patrols and just found this guy. Whatever. That's cool. Thrawn preps for his departure back to New Republic space and gets warned that Ahsoka is on the way, setting up probably, the big confrontation in the final episode. I don't think it's going to happen next week. I think that's going to get punted out one more. But that's it. It really is a smooth streamline of just, these 6 or 7 basic scenes that just kind of run into each other. Things happen when they need to and are supposed to happen. Nothing is challenging. The characters don't learn anything. They don't typically get developed any more than we've seen them get developed all along. Like I mentioned, the big 2 reveals, underwhelming in a couple of different ways for me on both of them, but I'll get into that. I'm going to strive to pepper in a little bit, some positivity, because there were a couple of good takeaways, but I do have, a couple of downs, a couple of predictions, and just some observations just where the plot kind of just failed the characters and just does stupid shit. But I'll say this show is another in Disney's category of shows that's shot pretty well and things look really cool. In particular here, visuals in this episode, when we get the Thrawn reveal, the Chimera Star Destroyer that's his personal flagship looks like it's been through as much distress as you think it might been through. Like the underbelly when it's landing at the Night Sister Temple is missing plates and components, and it just looks like it's about to fall apart. We get a scene in the main hangar bay, kind of reminiscent of the Emperor's arrival in Return of the Jedi, where Thrawn makes his first live action appearance and he's kind of marching down amidst the formation of his troopers. The troopers have this, it kind of reminded me of early Mandalorian. They get this distressed, sandblasted kind of look. The armor's kind of scuffed and chipped up. They've been done up with like elements of like this red ribbon, red fabric kind of thing, which made me wonder if they're going to go with the full-on connection to, is this the beginning of the First Order? Something that we get in the sequel trilogy. So we know they're using these shows and these other smaller projects to connect to that. They're definitely not decanonizing that.
Obviously.
So that stuff looked kind of cool. I was like, all right, so at least there's something visually engaging and interesting to look at. Same thing with the planet sides. I have no major gripes with the aesthetics that they choose. I like all the temples that they've done in this show. I like that anywhere that the star maps have been used and where the Night Sisters are now, they have this cool aesthetic where on all the pillars or kind of the rune stones or whatever you want to call them, they look like they've been kind of embossed would be the wrong word, but they're kind of adorned with star maps with like the concentric circles and the celestial bodies and those kind of patterns, which is kind of a cool look. The Night Sisters themselves had some cool looks to them. A couple of characters that got introduced in this episode had some okay looks, and they're actually played by sci-fi veterans of other shows, which I thought was really cool because I didn't pick them up on the first notice. I had to go back and do a little reading. The lead Night Sister is Claudia Black from SG-1, which I thought was pretty cool. Didn't recognize her. It's been a while since I've seen her in anything. And then the character of Enoch, who is Thrawn's second in command, the stormtrooper that has the nifty gold faceplate, which is another interesting aesthetic creative choice that they use. That's actually Wes Chatham from The Expanse. He played Amos. He was a badass character on that show. Hopefully in 2 episodes they'll give him a little badassery in this. Otherwise he's Captain Phasma 2.0 as far as I'm concerned, because he didn't do anything yet. And I guess that's kind of my complaint with the episode here. King Z and I were talking offline, and he mentioned, what didn't you like about the episode? It moved the story forward. And I'm like, well, I mean, kind of, but it gave us the reveals of things we knew were going to happen, and nothing interesting happened to facilitate either of those things. Like both of the characters showed up, Ezra and Thrawn, like they were just NPCs, and we were just along for the quest in the middle of The Witcher 3. And I'm like, I just don't care, So that's the visuals were okay. The scoring also, there was some really good music that they laid down at different points. But the stuff on the planet when Sabine is meeting Ezra and they encounter a group of totally not Ewoks because they look like rock turtle things, but were totally Ewoks or Jawas, had a kind of like an upbeat kind of playful melody to it. Juxtaposed completely with like the ominous tones. It was almost like a Christopher Nolan riff, kind of from one of his movies. Thrawn appears and there's just this booming horns, boom. It was like supposed to be intimidating as he's getting his march on, like an Imperial march style. It was okay. It was all right. Like in a vacuum, it was pretty good. But like when you see where it ends up, it's just one more thing that's Like there's just something missing to it, and I wish that wasn't the case. And we get a couple of familiar, but like I was mentioning before, the rock turtle guys are called No T, and there's another faction of beings on the planet that are hostile towards them that are totally not discount Tusken Raiders or anything, but we'll talk a little bit more about them. But at least the creature designs on both of them were all right. I thought they were okay. I didn't hate them. Downsides on the episode, like I said, everything is just kind of simple after Ahsoka takes the episode off. Like I needed more of her doing something, convening with the Force.
Jedi. Ahsoka is Jedi.
Working her way like mentally through her training. Give me another Anakin flashback that actually meant something, where he taught her something, functional and actionable that she could use going forward at this point of her life. I wanted something more like that, and I get it. We're not probably going to get that kind of nuanced take on what it's like to be inside her head at this point in her life, and it really is going to stay on a superficial level. I think that's too bad. I know it's Space Wizards for kids, allegedly, according to some people, but Star Wars has always had there's a reason it's permeated the zeitgeist for like 7 decades. It means more if you want it to mean more, and you can look into some of the subtext and some of the concepts that they play with, but this show isn't going to give you that. My big downer for the week is the appearance of the big two. Like I was saying, like I'll do Ezra first, because I think the Thrawn ones kind of lends itself to probably being worse in a lot of ways, right? So Sabine fetch quests her way down on the planet, survives an attack from the aforementioned not Tusken Raiders, rescues the No T, and through happenstance, not because she divined anything,
That's not how the Force works.
or put herself at any risk.
We don't do that here.
She happens to reach inside the rock turtle's jacket and sees a rebel insignia. And then she starts babbling on about Ezra. Do you know Ezra? Do you know Ezra? Ezra must be here. Do you know Ezra? And they speak each other's language, which was weird because she'd never been there. No human had really probably ever been there. No Mandalorian had ever been there. But the rock dudes can understand what she's saying and lead her back to camp after like a 4-minute conversation. And there's Ezra. He's just there. Like he's just a dude. He's in regular dude clothing. They did him up, which I thought was kind of nifty, to look like his dad did in Rebels, when his dad was arrested by the Imperials and led away. So he's got like the full beard, the beigeish clothing that they wore on Lothal. So I mean, I think they paid a little attention to detail there. That was kind of cool, but it was underwhelming. He wasn't doing Jedi stuff. He wasn't teaching anybody. He wasn't resolving a conflict between anything. He wasn't exerting himself with like the Force, like helping with building something, or doing any kind of like rescuing of people with the Force. Just like he was just a dude that was in a village that she happened to pop into. And then that's to say nothing of the actual, like the feeling of the reunion itself. Like if this is somebody, Sabine, right? Sabine, if this is your boy, if this is your best, you know what I mean? If this is your guy, and you're willing to risk letting Thrawn re-enter Republic space and reigniting like the galactic war, bring a little bit more emotion to the reunion. And I get it, and this isn't a slight on or slam on the actors. Like they can only do what they're given to do. The writing here suffered. Like they tried to play it like it was like it was just like a cool like a meetup. Like, hey, what's up? Okay, and they have this little back and forth before they finally go in for the hug, and it's like there's no chemistry. It doesn't work. Like then it's not romantically inclined, because they did away with that on Rebels. I get a lot of people out there were critical of this, saying that they wanted sparks to fly, like they were supposed to kiss or something. Like that was not the vibe. That was never Sabine's vibe towards him. Like he always had the Aladdin vibe for Jasmine, you know what I mean? Or the early on in the Aladdin tale, like the Disney thing, like where he was always sweet on her, but they kind of grew into the brother-sister thing. So I didn't need them to start sucking face or anything like that. I just thought it was underwhelming what they did give us. And they leave it in the most weak saucest place. Like there's no dialogue about anything that had happened, what had it taken her to get there, how they're going to get back, what the state of the galaxy is on the other side. Like, where's Hera? Have you heard from Zeb? Like, what's the deal? Are we still good? Is Thrawn really gone? Like, what do you know? No, he's just like, I'm happy to be going home. Understandable. Like, I got you, dude. You've been marooned for however long. You want to get back. But like nothing. They just leave it on this Sabine looking off because she knows that they're probably stranded. I mean, we know they're not going to be. You know, Ahsoka's going to show up with the space whales and get them the F out of Dodge. But like, underwhelming. Like, I needed more from Ezra because I know for a fact this show's not going to let him have any major impact on the story going forward because it's not the Ezra show. You know, it's not Rebels. He's not going to have a big hero moment. We'll probably get a scene of him and Sabine fighting back to back in next week's episode as they resolve the coming conflict, and I'll get into that in the predictions section in a minute. Right, but let me do the Thrawn thing real quick before I forget. Right. So we've been the big push for this show. There were always 2 points. Everybody wanted to see Ahsoka live action, and a lot of people wanted to see Thrawn live action. A lot of fans of Thrawn out there from Rebels, from the book series, from the Heir to the Empire trilogy. And let me say this right first before I even talk about Thrawn. I hate that they even use the phrase Heir to the Empire in the show, in the marketing for the show. The only Heir to the Empire aspect about this show, as far as I can recall, is the Thrawn character. Like, none of the main arcs of either of those 3 books have been utilized or adapted in any way I can remember. Comment below, some of you guys that have read that trilogy a bunch of times, you could correct me on that. The only thing I could think that was involved was the hyperspace ring, and maybe I forgot about that, but I don't think it was. So really, it's Heir to the Empire in name only, just for the Thrawn character. Now, we finally get him. An update for you guys, or, you know, clue in for you guys that aren't fans of all that side of Star Wars. Thrawn is a very different kind of villain than the Emperor, than Snoke, than Vader, than any of the Prince Shizor, you know, the Hutts. He's very different. He's like a 900 IQ, like, super intellectual assassin. Like, this dude figures you out on the context that you give him easily. Like, that's what he does. He's like a professional, an analyst. He's a professional student of like world cultures and just understands how to get at the root of his enemy. Where he can, like King Z said, and it's stated all over the place because it's the takeaway that people know most about Thrawn. His brilliance is that by analyzing your culture, your art, your music, you know, your religious beliefs, things like that, you know, how you live as a society, whether you're agrarian or industrial, are you patriarchal, are you matriarchal? Like, he analyzes all those variables and then puts together the best way to lay you to the bricks and put you under for like the permanent dirt nap. It's what he does. You know, Rebels expanded it a little bit into the comic section, a little cartoony, where he's in prime physical shape and can throw hands. I don't remember him ever throwing hands in the books either, because he always had Rook, like his personal assassin, you know, scout bodyguard. That was always his job to handle the business. We saw how that ended up. No spoilers here, but neither here nor there. But the cartoon needing the visual made Thrawn into a little bit of a, I'm also super fit and can throw hands if I have to throw hands. You're not getting any of that here, guys. Thrawn shows up, and it looks like anybody listening to this video, it looks like your uncle stuffed himself into a Grand Admiral suit and like went on like the Halloween like trunk or treat with the kids. Like, I'm a big dude. I'm not body shaming anybody for shaming. This falls onto my whole cast somebody that looks the part. Lars Mikkelsen might be a great actor. He provided the voice for Thrawn in the Rebels show. Fine. This dude couldn't stuff himself into an admiral's uniform to save his life. At gunpoint, this was not a good look, right? It did not work for me. You can't have this guy, this notoriously badass, imposing, silently menacing figure show up rocking the dad bod. It just doesn't work. It does not work, especially where it's not in his character to get loud or to be physically imposing by getting big on someone. Like, he just needed to be not jacked, but like cut up. That way he could do the quiet thing and talk about how we're going to resolve this issue. Like, that whole thing. Like, it only works when you look a certain way. So even if this guy played Thrawn in the Rebels cartoon, did the voice work, he doesn't look the part. It's the same thing when we complain about race and gender swaps. It's not that nobody wants to have opportunities to have other people that don't look like us be in things. But you got to respect the medium, and the medium is Thrawn looks like this. Him having dad bod would have been no different than if they just forewent the blue body paint or the red contact lenses. It just doesn't look enough like Thrawn for it to be convincing, you know? So I was underwhelmed by that. And then because again, the show only has the runtime that it has, we're not going to get enough opportunity to see Thrawn be Thrawn. Like, he's not going to have ample time to analyze Ahsoka or Ezra, who he should have, because, you know, he knows Ezra and should have been hunting him down over the last 5 years. Like, what the fuck you been doing, dude? You've been up there eating well on that Star Destroyer, apparently. You ain't got no time to find Ezra, though. But anyway, he just doesn't have enough time to do what he's going to do, what he does best. This whole thing's going to be a rush job with him at the last second, the same way it'll be with Ezra on the ground, where they're just going to move from like A to B to C to D to credits, and then the series is over. So it's just not enough. Like, there's not enough time for him to move pieces on the board, you know, some complex machinations of stuff that's going to yield an outcome only he could foresee, and that we can only, you know, understand, like, if we went back and looked at the clues they had given us, like they did in the Heir to the Empire trilogy. Now, I get it. Again, it's a series, it's got 8 episodes, but again, like I pointed out at the top of my review, they wasted 10 minutes on nothing. There could have been time where we could have seen the reveal, they could have had more time with him. He needs a whole bunch more time with Baylan. I'm gonna get to that real quick, because that's my next point on the downs. Matter of fact, let's just jump right into it. The characters still lacking an opportunity for development. We got lots of interesting ideas in this show, but again, we're out of time. I'm going to save Baylan and Shin for the end, but we have even more interesting ideas like unearthed in this episode, where Baylan speculates that, you know, that the Night Sisters and Thrawn are trying to leave the planet that they're on because there's something dangerous there that they're trying to escape from. I'm like, okay, interesting idea. You're going to have one episode to tell me about that and do something with it. And it's going to amount to something completely underwhelming because it didn't have enough time cooking. This should have been something that he was telling Shin about 6 episodes ago. Something building in anticipation, initiating a setup for the payoff now. And it just didn't work out that way. And it couldn't work out that way because they've run the clock down on what they can do. You know, we're 6 episodes into this show, and we finally are now getting kind of a glimpse into Baylan's motivation, that he's kind of doing that he wants to do the whole breaker of chains Khaleesi thing from Game of Thrones. Fine. Have that as your goal. You're no longer interested in seeing, you know, the dark side rise and the light fall, and then the light rise and the dark fall, and this perpetual wheel, like you know, Khaleesi had said. So he wants to use whatever power he thinks he can uncover on Peridia to break that cycle and just to end it. He's got a kind of it's not a gray Jedi outlook on some things, because he cold-blooded murdered some fools at the beginning of this show, but it leaves me in a spot where I wanted to see more of that and less time of nothing happening through 5 episodes outside of a couple of convoluted subplots being examined with Sabine and Ahsoka. I needed that. We didn't get a whole lot of that either so far, and we're not, because we're almost at the end of the show. Like, I needed more of Baylan, and this episode made me want even more retroactively. Like, he mentions to Shin, like, you know, I watched everything I knew burn when I wasn't much older than you. You know, he saw the Clone Wars. He saw a lot of stuff. Dude, I want to know who his master was, where he's from, what his involvement was when the temple fell. Like, what did he see? Who did he know? Same thing with Shin. What do we know about this character? Baylan found her and taught her some shit. Big deal. Where? Under what circumstances? Is she a royal that was, you know, dethroned and cast out onto the street, and he took pity on her? Is she, I don't know, a clone? Does she have brothers and sisters that he failed to rescue, and that's a deep-seated hatred that she has for him, and she's going to spring it on at the last minute? What is her story? We just don't know. We don't know any of these things. You know, we don't know anything about what Ahsoka's been up to for 5 years. Like, looking for, like, doing what? You've been on the hunt for Thrawn. You had to track down Elsbeth to be the gateway to him. Like, no. Like, you've run out of time now. It's now too long to examine any of these. We're too far into the show to examine any of these interesting building blocks that should have been up front. That way they could be paid off now. And I think that's sad, because there was a lot of opportunity here. Like I said earlier, in the upside of things, there's some interesting ideas here. Like we could have had more on the Night Sisters, more on what their connection to the Force looks like and how it works as opposed to the Jedi and the Sith, because they are very different in the lore. You know, we could have seen all kinds of stuff about that, but we're not going to get that now. Like that's a wrap, you know. Predictions going forward, you know, we're going to get a couple of really easy slam dunk things that are probably going to happen. They set them up kind of clearly. We're going to get Ezra and Sabine having to defend the Rock Turtles from the Not Tuskens, Balin and Shin. That's going to happen. I don't think we get a major resolution to any of those characters there, because I think they're all going to survive into episode 8. Where we'll finally get the big throwdown, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself until I see 7. I predict that Ezra will not have a big hero moment wielding the Force in any way. It's not his show. They should give him a moment like that, because God knows the show needs, like, you know, male heroes. They're lacking in this show. Like, where are they? Like, what are you fuckers doing? Like, it's Star Wars. Like, do something. But we're not getting him. Thrawn will give a pseudo-intellectual speech before he outlines the trap that he's setting for Ahsoka in the style of Cloud City Empire Strikes Back, which will obviously fail, and through no effort or on her own, or it'll just work itself out, because nothing in this show has challenged characters in any way, shape, or form. There have been no stakes. There's no tension. You know, no amount of the aesthetic in terms of, you know, the stormtroopers, the Chimera, or, you know, Ahsoka the White. It just doesn't matter if the story's not strong enough to hold up the interesting ideas that it has, and I really don't think it is. Observations, because it's tough kind of to figure out where the show is going to end up, because I don't know what they have planned next in terms of projects they want to get off the ground besides the movies that they think they're going to make, and I'm not believing they're making any of those personally. Like, Disney's tanking it. They have no money. They're broke. Ahsoka cost them a butt ton of money to make. You know, the Marvels is costing them a butt ton of money to make. Snow White's costing them a butt ton of money to make, and they just don't have that kind of cash wheeling around anymore. But for this show, if they're on the other side of the galaxy, where if it resolves on this side, which I don't think it can, it means the New Republic and Hera are too far away to help. So I'm guessing they all make the jump back to Republic space at the end of this next episode coming up. That way the New Republic can be there, and we can get X-Wings, and we can get the Ghost, you know, doing all kinds of ghost shit and flying around and helping out there. If Thrawn was, you know, in orbit above Peridia all this time, why didn't he obliterate Ezra? Like, why not? You wouldn't have followed the Jedi down to make sure he couldn't come back to ice you later? Seems like a bit of an oversight, but, you know, that's what are you going to do? I'm wondering if we're going to see, hopefully they work this into Thrawn's lore, if he does have a final showdown with Ezra and Sabine, or with Ahsoka, or whoever it's going to be, that he has in the books it starts with the Y. I'm just going to call them the salamanders. You know what they are. They're creatures that put like a force dampening field around. So in the books, Thrawn always had them on his ship, in his quarters, in his office. That way, you know, Vader in particular couldn't F with them. But just so Jedi in general couldn't F with him. So yeah, I guess that's all I got to say on this episode. You know, I wasn't blown away by the reveal of either Thrawn or Ezra, and I was kind of disappointed for both. I wanted to see more of each of them looking and doing Ezra and Thrawn stuff. You know, I've said it since my first review on the channel. I just want to see superheroes doing superhero shit. I don't think it's a lot to ask. So I want to see Ezra doing Jedi shit. I want to see Thrawn doing Thrawn shit, and him just walking around and talking in a low voice that's a little slow to make it sound like it's all, you know, it's introspective and pondering and everything. It doesn't work unless what you're saying yields a story result that's meaningful, and it just doesn't feel meaningful at all. So they can take all the cool aesthetics, you know, with Enoch and the distressed stormtroopers and the cool creature designs, and just stuff it in a sack, guys. Like, I've seen enough. I think that when this show is over, I think Star Wars would do well to be on a good hiatus for a while. I'm not going to do numbers in this review, but their viewership is awful. It's on a constant decline. If they're not remotely transparent about what they consider views, so we go by watch minutes, and we can see that the watch minutes here have been exceeded by Book of Boba Fett in a couple of key indicators. So it's not, this show isn't burning the internet down. You remember when House of the Dragon came out a year ago? That burned the internet down with people talking about it on Twitter and getting trending, and being on like Google search results constantly. And you can make a video on that and get crazy views regardless of your channel size. This show is just there. It's just one more tile on Disney Plus, and that's sad because with a character like Ahsoka that had so much opportunity and potential to be developed into something interesting, they cherry-picked Thrawn and made them at odds for whatever reason, and here we are. Like, we get no more with her and Ahsoka. They'll have their happy-go-lucky reunion at the end, I'm betting. Nobody's gonna care that Ezra's there. They put Zeb at the end of one of the Mandalorian episodes. He hasn't made an appearance. Maybe he comes in for a last-minute save. We've mentioned Kanan Jarrus by name once, and it was a nobody character that did it. Hera hasn't reflected on him with Jason, her like their son, like at all. Like, there was an opportunity for that in the episode where they were searching for Ahsoka. Didn't take it. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I've said as much as I want to say on this episode. I appreciate it if you've come this long on the ride. I know it was a bit of a downer. I know people really enjoyed the episode. Just for seeing Thrawn in live action was enough for some people. Sadly, it was not enough for me. I'm going to come down on it a little harder than King Z did, who I think he gave it a 4 or a 4.1 out of 5. This is 2.5, 2.8 at best for me. I just didn't care. There was too much wasted time. There was no emotional impact with the reunion with Ezra and Sabine, and Ahsoka took the episode off. So if she doesn't care, why should I care? Guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. We're going to do these reviews and get them out to you as quickly as we can. If you stuck around this long, I appreciate you. Again, much love. Drop a like, comments on the episode. Did you love Thrawn in live action? Was it just me? Sub to the channel if you like. The button's right down there somewhere. There's a bell. Hit that too, like King Z always says. And we'll see you in the next one.